center for 2022, just to move it forward to make sure we're having a discussion around what we're doing with that building. Doing a piece like a stuff.
Okay.
I was the one where I was wrong, where I forgot my own motion. I forgot if Jackie amended my motion, actually, and I think I thought I won my motion, but she won the amendment. When they send the videos, like, I hate when you're...
I've definitely had the same thing happen to me.
That's too bad that happened.
Councillor Palat, we're ready in chambers. If you just want to give us a countdown when you're ready to begin.
Okay, and can I just ask if is Stephanie on the line? Oh, congratulations.
Yes, I am.
I just want to ask Steph, when did you want to ask him or jump in about that? Did you do it after the director's update or? Start in 3, 2, 1. Morning, everybody, and welcome to the committee meetings for today. We're starting off with the Community Services Committee meeting, and I'll look to Director Miller. Sorry, I switched portfolios here. Director Miller to give us our update, please.
Thanks, Chair Platt. And on my agenda, I could be wrong here, but it says Peace Library Systems is first.
Oh, my apologies. Yes, you're absolutely right. Sorry, Director Miller. Yes, so we have Peace Library Systems up first. If you can turn your camera on and introduce yourself, that would be great. Hello there. And so, hi, Mrs. Robinson. Are you joined with anybody else today?
No, just me.
Okay. All right. So please take the floor. You've got about 5 minutes, and then we'll hopefully have some questions for you.
Okay, hello, Council. I realize I do only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to talk very fast. I'll give you a little bit of background. I'm not sure how much everybody is aware of who we are and what we do. Peace Library Systems is one of the 7 library systems in Alberta. The boundaries were established by the province under the Libraries Act, and within our boundaries, there are 38 municipalities and 1 Métis settlement that have all decided to work together to offer library services. It's a very strong, very cohesive 35-year-old regional partnership and has made a lot of difference to these 46 member libraries in our region. The system is governed by a board of directors made up of municipal appointees, and your representative to our council is, of course, Chris Thiessen. You might wonder why you need a library system. Grande Prairie Public Library and the surrounding community libraries offer many local services and do a very excellent job of that. Membership in the library system allows libraries to offer even more services, and it also connects the libraries to others in the region and across the province. It allows the libraries to do more than they can just on their own. Peace Library System basically helps libraries in 4 key areas. We build their library collections with up-to-date materials. We help with library technology. We help to get more resources for patrons than are just held in the local libraries. And we also help with training and program support for the people who run those libraries. We also assist libraries with marketing, getting the word out about libraries, and we'll again this year be running a marketing campaign. And we're working across the region on initiatives to reach out to Indigenous communities. Library system fees are set out in the master agreement between between us and member municipalities. Municipal fees of $6.37 per capita are pooled to offer regional library services. In 2020, the city of Grande Prairie, with a population of 69,088, which was a 2019 population count, contributed $440,090.56 to regional library services. Library boards also contribute a further $2.75 per capita to build library collections, and that goes into their allotment funds. Currently, 50 cents of which is each per capita is earmarked specifically to buy e-resources, electronic resources. That's e-books, e-audiobooks, and other reference databases. The Grande Prairie Public Library Board contributed $198,992 to their ordering account through which library staff can order new materials. And a small amount of that, 17,272, is diverted to regional e-resources that are shared by all libraries in the system. The revenue collected from the City of Grande Prairie totals 14.9%, that's 14.9, of the total revenue for Peace Library System. But circulation for patrons of the Grande Prairie Public Library, though, accounts for 49% of all circulation in the Peace system. So what did we do with your money last year? PLS was able to increase delivery capacity through the acquisition of a second delivery van and hiring a second driver, which will also help facilitate this year the future implementation of the Claremont book blockers, as we'll be able to add that stop into our routes with minimal disruption to all the other member libraries. PLS, in partnership with the other three systems that make up the TRAC Consortium, which is Northern Light System, Marigold System, and Yellowhead, developed and launched the TRAC Pack app, which enables library users to access library services from their phones. This has been a huge assistance during the shutdowns, as users were able to access the catalog, their holds, their accounts, all while waiting in their cars for a curbside delivery. We took over interlibrary loan administration for the system from Grande Prairie Public Library, who used to manage the system for the entire region, and now Grande Prairie just manages their own, and we manage for the system, but we interact with each other on a regular basis. PLS is now able to offer patrons the full and unlimited RB Digital slate of e-magazine content through our subscription with Overdrive e-resources. We allotted a total of $135,000 for our system to e-resources, which was quite a lot more than was originally budgeted, but it made to keep up with demand for the e-content during the pandemic shutdown, when it was just about impossible to get to the physical collections. Through an Indigenous populations grant we provided by the province, we were able to put on a number of virtual anti-racism seminars that were open to all library workers and board members to participate in, which was a joint project between Peace, Northern Lights, and Yellowhead, as well as to provide services, subsidized programming, hired an Indigenous outreach worker to bring those programs and services to the Indigenous communities in the Peace District. PLS were also able to offer webinar training on topics such as ebook platforms, Library Aware, and Niche Academy in place of the in-person training that we would normally do with library workers. PLS, in conjunction with Yellowhead, Parkland, and TAL, which is the Alberta Library, reimagined the Rural Libraries Conference that usually takes place in the fall, and we reimagined it into a virtual 2-day conference that had a huge uptake across the province and even across the country. And we're actually going to be continuing kind of in that model for this year, and then we'll see where we are from there. PLS even managed to sponsor an author reading session over Zoom with Marty Chan from the Edmonton Public Library. All in all, it was a very unusual year, but it served to show that libraries can continue to offer services even in the middle of a global pandemic to populations who are stuck at home or in their cars, taking services to where the people are and delivering it in new and innovative ways while abiding by public health orders. It was a year-long experiment that turned out to be a big success, and it will continue to impact how libraries deliver our services into the future. And that's me.
All right. Well, thanks for the summary on that, Ms. Robinson, and I'll just look to my council colleagues to see if there's any questions. Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thanks for the work you do for our libraries, and thanks for updating us today. Really appreciate it. I'm just kind of curious in terms of digital content. Who knows where that'll go, but I assume the people that are newly comfortable with it will keep on consuming digital content to at least some degree. In terms of how that changes you folks going forward, is there much thought of that? And specifically what I'm wondering about is I've heard issues in the past with the cost that publishers pass on to the libraries for every read of digital content. And I'm wondering how big a concern that might be in your budget in coming years.
It is an ongoing concern because digital content is mostly billed in US dollars, so that exchange is always a concern of ours. And it's really not entirely predictable, so that cost is always kind of up in the air until we get the final bill. And B, they continue to rise on average about 5% every year. So when that goes up, and as I'm sure you've probably heard from Grande Prairie Public, the provincial library operating grant has not changed since 2016, and is not. They've said it's not looking to change certainly not this year and probably not for next year. So every year that buying power goes down a little bit. So it is a concern, and we are always looking for, and we're always reviewing the e-content that we have to what's being used, what isn't being used, what we can cut, what we can put more money into. It's kind of a balancing act all the way through, trying to figure out where the best place to spend that money is. I know that it's more of a concern in academic databases. I come from, before I was here, I came from the government of Alberta, where we spent on average $900,000 a year on databases, and here we spend, well, quite a lot less. But it's the public library-centered databases don't go up as drastically. Mind you, they're also not as expensive to start with, but they do still go up, and it's a lot of fun trying to figure out where that best place to spend that money is. And we are trying to divert more money into e-content, especially as people are being stuck at home. But that doesn't mean that we're ignoring the physical at all.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? I've just got a couple for you then, I guess. Just wondering, we've heard a little bit about our local library, but can you kind of tell me what's going on and kind of what the health of the regional libraries looks like, just to kind of give me an idea of what's going on in our smaller communities right now?
The usage of the smaller libraries is very high, and with the pandemic, it's even gotten higher. There's a lot of programming going on. It's kind of a take and do rather than come to the library and do this. They'll put together kits that people can take home and do them there. There's a lot of drive-through programming. For instance, I think it was Grimshaw had a drive-through Santa thing over Christmas, and that was really kind of cool to see. So the usage and the public perception of the libraries is actually quite good. It's unfortunate that as funding from the province to the municipalities goes down, libraries are often the first thing on the chopping block. And that's where the health is an issue, in that they're reducing hours, they're reducing people, they're reducing whatever they can to try and, make up their own funding shortfalls. And it's unfortunate that almost always falls into libraries. So one of the things that we're planning to do going forward, because our new plan of service is coming up for this year, is to ask the libraries where their issues are, especially with their lack of funding, and where we can not make up their funding. Obviously, we can't do that, but to try to make up services, or at least centralize some services that we can try to boost them where their municipalities can't.
Okay. And just one other, can you give me an idea, kind of similar to Councillor Bressy's question, but can you kind of give me an idea how much content we bring in on an annual basis that's books versus digital? Like, do we have like a breakdown of that, just so and kind of what we would spend annually on new books and new content for the library system?
I do not have it in front of me, but I can get it to you.
Okay, no, I'd appreciate that. Yeah, I know sorry, I wanted to kind of look through your guys' and see. I'm sure I could pull up your financials online. I didn't take the time to do that, so my apologies on that. But it was a question. But is there any other questions from committee at all? Councillor O'Toole?
Yeah, thank you for being here today and presenting. I've just got one question. At one time, I was the representative from council on the Peace Library system. And I was just wondering if there's any need for you to expand the current office that we have in Grande Prairie. I know at the time we did some renovations back then and made things work better for the staff with electronics and computers. But do you foresee any major changes in the building or the way that the operation runs in the near future via computers and stuff like that?
Not in the near future, no. If it comes time that we manage to pull Mackenzie County into the system, and I know that's a pie in the sky kind of idea, we would probably have to bring in a couple more people. I'm not sure that we would have to expand the building to do it. We might have to kind of move people around. But in this past year as well, we also finished out that grant that we got for renovating the building a few years ago, and we put a garage in the parking lot to house at least a couple of one of the delivery vehicles and one of the consultant vehicles.
So they'll start in the wintertime.
Sorry?
So they'll start in the wintertime, right?
So they'll start in the wintertime is the hope, yes. So we may have to reconfigure some inside space if that ever happens, but I don't foresee us having to make any major changes to the actual structure of the building.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Friesen.
Thank you, Chair Palat. Thank you for the presentation. This isn't a question, but maybe builds just on what Councillor Palat's asking for. If you're going back for information anyway, could we maybe get a comparison, not only of just pure volume, but to Councillor Bressy's point, the expense of weighing what used to be physical books against electronic media, and just how that compares. So not just in raw data numbers, but also in the impact on your budget. Sure, please. Thank you.
Thanks. Councillor Friesen expanded it a little better than I can explain as usual. Any other questions? Seeing none, I really want to thank you for coming in today and taking the time and explaining what's going on with your organization, and maybe taking away a little bit of homework from us today and getting back to us. We much appreciate that. So appreciate you coming in, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. And from there, we'll move on to back to Director Miller. Sorry, as I was out of order, so we'll go back to our verbal update, please.
All right, thanks, Chair Platt. So I'll start off with the Community Knowledge Campus. And the Aquaterra Community Skating Oval is now closed for the season, and reportedly the GP Speed Skating Club was very pleased with the ice quality, and that was due to the hard work of the Coca-Cola Center Arena operations staff, so they did a great job for us. And then with Eastlink Center, for the week of March 14th to the 20th, just some stats for you, for your information. The aquatics, fitness, low-intensity mobility classes were at 98% capacity, so that's good news. Fieldhouse bookings were at 100%, and the drylands low-intensity fitness was just over 50% capacity. And also good news, some of the guests or clients are starting to reactivate the memberships, and that's the full annual membership. And that's since the weight room and the track reopened on March 15th. And then with events and entertainment, at MCC, Jeffries is planned to reopen on April 5th. And then with Red Place, some good news there. In partnership with the Grande Prairie Curling Club, they'll host both the men's Boston Pizza Cup, Boston Pizza Cup, and also the Alberta Scotties Tournament of the Hearts. And that'll be from January 3rd until the 9th of 2022. So good activity for our community. And then with facilities, just an update on a couple things. Eastlink Center and the Coke Center, the access egress project is, the startup meeting is happening. And then they're also working on new renewal projects, doing some work in the dressing rooms, doing some painting, some shower grouting, millwork, and door replacements, and also some work in the field house. And with Fleet, Transportation will be happy about this, but their new replacement F550 bucket truck for the traffic signals transportation crew has arrived, and it'll be ready, it's arrived, it has arrived March 23rd and should be in service by the end of the week. And then they're also working on the paver and the other road repair equipment, so that'll be ready to go when needed. And then with sports development, wellness, and culture, the Easter egg extravaganza will be held on April 3rd with an Easter egg hunt in the Heritage Village, and there's also going to be photo ops available with the Easter Bunny, and of course they'll be doing the social distancing requirements, and then you can enter a contest as well it's a coloring contest. And then just a note here about how well it goes over in the community. The event sold out in record time, and we had to extend the hours to accommodate the requests from the families. So really good to see the interest. And then also this is for Councillor Bressy, but they're supporting the GP Disc Golf Club to run outdoor events in small groups with portable baskets for activities at Muskosipi and South Bear Creek Parks. So we know what a fan he is of disc golf. And then Mr. Casey McLean, he's a local CPA from the Highland Park Neighborhood Association, presented to the associations recently to assist the boards with using a ledger and recording, just to explain the process for recording revenues and expenses. And this will help us with, or help them with their year-end financials for their annual return that they're required to provide. And apparently the attendees were very engaged and asked lots of questions, so it was a very helpful session. Then with transit, finally, they're continuing to work on the new route network, and there will be a public consultation process to be done in the future, and then recommendations will be brought to council for their final approval. And then something interesting is Windsor Ford recently approached Mr. Harvard, and they have intentions of installing an electric vehicle charging station, and they asked about the requirements for our electric buses. And so that would be like a plan B if we ever ran short of a charge and we're at the north end of the city, we could possibly pop into Windsor Ford just to charge up the units to get us back to our service center. But so it's good to see that they're thinking of us as well. And that's my report, Mr. Chair, unless there's any questions.
That's great. Thanks for that very detailed report, Director Miller. Any questions? I just got one. Sorry, Councilman Minhouse, go ahead.
Yeah, Miller, Erwin, that you said that Windsor Ford, where do they want to put the bus charges in the city center or their parking lot?
Thanks, Chair Platt. My understanding is they plan on putting it in their parking lot on the north end of the city, so it'll be a convenient station for others to use as well as potentially for us if needed.
Also, on that point, Tesla is looking to put the places in the parking as they approach in Bellevue. I know they want to put it in there, and they do it to kind of, they put it in, but no cost, but they just need a little bit of space. Did they approach to city at all or no?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Just for curiosity. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Councilman Huss. Director Miller, can you just, the Oval, do we have any idea how many people use that Oval? I heard lots of good things about it this year, and now it's being closed. Do we have kind of any approximate sort of numbers on how many people would have skated around that this year?
Thanks, Chair Platt. I don't have the number, but I can certainly find out what the number is. It'd be interesting to know how many would use it. Are you talking the Oval?
Sorry, at Eastlink Center, yeah. And so we do have a counter on that Oval to be able to count traffic on that?
I don't know, but I'll connect with Ms. Redding and find out if we have at least an approximate number. Okay, so that'd be great, thanks. It just reminds me of a chat I was on a call last week about some other communities that are doing cameras on some of their outdoor parks and rec facilities just to try to have an idea of how much utilization they're getting through COVID, just to have ideas. And I wasn't sure if we had that on some of our facilities. So thanks, Director Miller. Seeing no other questions, okay, we'll move on to our next item of our agenda with the Event and Sports Center business case. There she is, Ms. Ridgway. If you want to jump in and take the floor, please.
Thanks, Chair Platt, and good morning, everybody. I'm happy to be here presenting an update on the event and sport business case. The recommendation is that for this report is for community to recommend council refer the event and sport business case to the 2022 budget deliberations for a funding decision. So there have been two master plans developed for Revolution Place in the past. These plans were specifically focused on renovation at the current location. Council discussed moving forward with one of these plans developed in 2013 during the 2021 budget deliberations. The motion was defeated with some major areas of concern arising about the site, namely access to parking, the adjacent railroad tracks, some operational issues that couldn't be fixed with renovations, such as utility corridor that runs along the northwest side of the building, the low ceiling height and the ice surface being at ground level, and big picture, the lack of space to develop a true entertainment district. So in the past, the city has considered renovations to the Revolution Place and also the introduction of a new performing arts center to the region, both incredibly enriching infrastructure projects that would positively affect the quality of life and livability of the city. Included in the report is a simple comparison between Lethbridge, Prince George, Medicine Hat, Brandon, Manitoba, Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, and Dawson Creek, comparing the capacity of these venues to population. The number of seats available at Revolution Place fall well below the average of other like-sized cities in Western Canada. The average population is 55,000 residents and 5,400 fixed seats. Grande Prairie is above this population average, yet we fall well below the average capacity with under 3,000 seats. In contrast, we are on par with capacity for Performing Arts Centre in the region, with an average large capacity venues in Western Canada is around 554 seats, with the Grande Prairie Regional College having 508 seats in its facility. So we're only comparing the largest performing arts center in each city. The majority of the cities have multiple venues similar to Grande Prairie. So moving on, a third-party business case analysis will give Council an in-depth look at key factors to enable for responsible decision-making in regards to moving forward and the timing of a new development. So from an administration's perspective, items to include in the business case RFP would be a market assessment. It'll be key to get a clear picture of the region's current state, especially post-pandemic. Needs assessment, obviously we want to determine the community needs, the capacity of the market, along with stakeholder and tenant needs. And most importantly, we want to look at benefits and risks. We want to include case studies of similar facilities, what their financial performance has been, and the utilization rates, along with other key issues to include. We want to know what building materials to use, amenities to include, look at some funding models and governance options, as well as analyzing trends within the market and the area. And very importantly, we would like the consultant to suggest some uses for the downtown building, including the cost of conversion to a performing arts center. And based on this analysis, we'd like to see a high-level recommendation on a seating capacity with outline for major design components and an estimated capital cost. And finally, we'd like the consultants to come and present to Council and be able to be interactive with you and answer any questions that may arise. So the business case assessment can be completed for the budgeted $200,000. This investment would be the major impact at this stage of the project and would be reflected in the 2022 budget. So in conclusion, the City of Grande Prairie is the metropolitan hub of Northern Alberta with the market strength and demographics to be able to attract a larger portion of the entertainment industry to the area. The age and capacity of the current event and sport venue requires that Council start to plan for the future of live events and entertainment in the city. The 2022 Event and Sport Centre business case is a prudent start to developing a long-term plan towards the phasing out of the downtown arena to a new market-appropriate facility. Thank you very much, and I really welcome any feedback that you have on information that would be helpful for you in making this decision of this size. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ms. Ridgway. Appreciate that. So, Councillor Bressie.
Great. Thank you, Chair Palat, and thank you, Ms. Ridgway, for the presentation. It's interesting seeing the different capacities we have compared to others. That was very interesting information I've never seen before. A process question and then a more substantive question. Just process question. Looking at the recommended motion to recommend to Council refer this to the 2022 budget deliberations. Am I wrong in understanding that if committee and Council take no action, that'll be happening anyways due to a motion we passed last budget deliberation in terms of if we just receive this for information, wouldn't that have the same effect?
I'm not sure who from administration is going to want to.
Sorry, I believe that is my understanding, but maybe Director would have better information.
Thanks, Chair Platt. I think that is my understanding as well. Our reason for bringing it forward now is it was on the outstanding list, and we did have some debate internally. Could we bring it forward now to show Council that we're working on it, or wait until 2022 and then bring it forward once it's approved. But we thought we'd bring it forward now and have the discussion. And then if there's additional information that committee or council wants, we can gather that prior to budget deliberations as well. So we're still hopeful on the recommendation just to move it forward, and then we'll add it to the list that finance maintains for budget deliberations. Great.
No, and I definitely appreciate seeing it now, and I think potential candidates running will really appreciate that this is out now instead of in October. So definitely that's the right thing to do. A more substantive question I've got is, so if this does go to fall budget deliberations, and if the new council does decide to proceed with this business case, and they get the business case back and they say, oh, great, we want to move ahead with the event center, or at least take the next step in investigation, what would come after this business case?
Mr. Ridgway?
Through the chair. The next step would be the design process. Basically, the design architectural design is usually about 10% of the overall cost. And I think the acquiring land will be a big piece to this puzzle as well, the actual placement of an event center. Mm-hmm.
Great. So then along that, something I'm trying to figure out is at some point in the process, other partners would have to be brought to the table, other regional municipalities, hopefully, but also other levels of government and potentially private sector, whether that was philanthropic giving, like Kamloops is working on for their event center, or whether that's a business coming on board. At what point would the city go out and potentially start to build those partners? And would it make sense to do an examination in the early business case about potential for collaboration with others, or is that something that should come after the business case?
Through the chair, I have included that in the business case. So I would like an in-depth look at funding models and what that could look like, and then what it's looked like in other areas, as well as governance. There's a plethora of different ways to run a building of this size, and I would like to put in the RFP that that's included in the business case. We can start examining that. Mm-hmm.
Great, awesome, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Ridgway? Mayor Clayton?
Thanks, Chair Plott. Apologize for being late. A question that possibly was already asked. So the recommended motion is refer the business case to the budget deliberations for a funding decision. The budget amount for the business case has already been funded in 2022. I'm just reading the capital funding to the 2020 budget. So basically, correct me here, Ms. Ridgway. Right now, the business case is in consideration for 2022 budget, but there's nothing been allocated for this as of yet.
Through the chair, that's correct.
Okay, thank you then. And as Councillor Bressie said, I think this is great information. It's there's some good background here for candidates, and probably will save you a few phone calls from numerous candidates asking background information. So really thank you for the thorough report.
Okay, thanks for that, Mayor Clayton. I guess, Ms. Ridgway, I just had a question. You somewhat answered it in your own summary of saying, looking at potentially performing arts center and everything, but just the way it's worded now, and with your involvement, are you pretty confident we'll capture what you've heard a lot of debate from this council, but what we're hoping to get out of it? So are you pretty confident that'll be captured through this motion and what the RFP would look like?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Plott. Yeah, I think this is a really good point. I think, bringing all the old master plans would help. I think we need to start with a new plan going forward, and I think we're going to hit on all of the information that we need.
Okay, perfect. Thanks for that. And then one other question. I'm not sure if this is for CEO Galante or Mr. Bork, but I'm just wondering if council had an appetite to want to move on this sooner, or would there be a funding source that would happen? And I only say that because as much as I like this is going there and it says funded on it, I'd be really worried a new council could come in and actually say, maybe we don't want to do this, and maybe this isn't a priority. And I think for me, debating in this last year, being wrong, I thought it was supposed to be in this year's budget, and it got amended to next year's. And that was, I guess, when I look back at that, I'm worried that this gets there and then a new budget comes in and they have other priorities, which is fine, but they unfunded. And I think for me, it's something I'd like to see us move forward sooner. So I'm just wondering if there was an appetite from council, would there be a funding source that we could use this year instead of being pushed to next year's budget? Director Moore?
Thanks, Chair Palat. At this very moment, the only funding source that comes to mind would be the Future Expenditure Reserve. There will be a report next month, giving an update on our financial position from 2020, which will identify a small surplus. But as of right now, Future Expenditure Reserve would be the only source of funding I can think of.
Okay, thank you for that. So. Happy to support this today. I guess I'll just make a comment that when we get that report, I might be looking to make a motion that we look at doing this sooner. My concern here is that we go to budget in November, then they go to RFP. It could be next summer before there's even a report about what we're thinking to do. Then we're going to be a business case, and it's going to be a 2 councils away before they decide go or no go. And it just feels that's where I'm getting to be worried about. I think there's going to be a push point is that other council going to get to a spot year 3 in their term of saying, oh, do we really want to build a $60 or $70 million facility in our last year of our term? So I would like to accelerate that a bit. So we'll see what comes out of our reserve study or our studies. But I really hope that we could get this moved ahead this year would be my intent. But I'm happy to support it today. Any other questions, Mayor Clayton?
Yeah, a question for you, Chair Plot, then. So if you want to get it moved further ahead today, I think that if I was you, I would encourage somebody from your committee to amend the suggested motion to put it into the 2021 budget deliberations for funding. If it doesn't get put into the 2022 budget considerations, you're correct. We won't see it till 2023. So if you were wanting it to happen sooner than later, it would have to go to budget discussions this fall.
But if that's what it's intended to do, is go this fall.
It says 2022 in the recommended.
Okay, maybe I'm misunderstanding that. Director Bork, can you clarify? I thought I was understanding it was going to this budget for 2022 expenses.
Thanks, Chair Palat. That's correct. We will debate budget 2022 this fall. So as of this motion it will be on this fall's agenda.
Okay, my apologies.
Okay, so I see Councillor Brest. Oh, Councillor Brest, your mic's muted, or you get too far into your great conversation.
Yeah, thank you. So Chair Palat, I think what I'm hearing you say is you think you'd like to get it funded for this year, but you want to wait until our financials are presented to us so you have a better sense of where our finances are at before you push for something.
Yeah.
In that case, I'll try a motion if committee's open to it. And showing my hands, I think that the fall budget deliberations are the appropriate place to talk about this. I think the next council, if they have no desire to move forward with this, then I don't see why we'd want to spend $200,000 on a business case that might not be supported. So I think it should be in fall, but I'm also more than happy to have the conversation, and I'd love you to have an opportunity after see the financials to make your argument then. So a motion I'll try is move the committee postpone this until after 2020 financials have been presented to council. Just the idea of saying, hey, why don't we park this conversation until we have a better idea of what the financials look like. And I think if Legislative Services has a better idea for that motion, I'm happy to change the wording. But kind of my intent is get the financials presented to Corporate Services one committee meeting cycle, then have this come to the Community Services 2 weeks following when those financials have been presented.
Okay, no, I appreciate the intent. Looking forward to the debate. Yeah, I think that works for me, but I just would look to, I'm not sure if Ms. Karbashewski's on the call or Sia Galante, if that works for administration.
Yeah, that is correct. That works for us. The intent is clear.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. So that motion is in order. I'm happy to support it. I do appreciate you bringing it up. So I'm happy to support that. Any other conversation on the motion? Okay, seeing none, we'll call the question. Sorry, so mine's coming up saying vote now, but it doesn't have a vote tab, so I'm in favor.
And same as Mayor Clayton, I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
In favor.
Okay, so Councillor Blackburn's also in favor. So that passes unanimously. So thank you for that. Again, a little glitch. Technology is great when it's great. We'll move on to the next item on our report, which is our, I guess, an update from Ms. Casually about our emergency community group funding request from the Swan City Football Club, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Administration would like to recognize that the Swan City Football Club has taken a very proactive approach in applying for grant funding from a variety of sources to support the club this year, and they have certainly demonstrated support for the sport of soccer and recreation in the community. Late last week, Swan City Football Club notified administration that they received confirmation of 2 grants that they had applied for and that they will be successful in receiving, and therefore no longer need this emergency funding to support their operations. So they have withdrawn their application for emergency community group funding, and they did acknowledge in the report that they information that they sent back to administration that I'd like to just extend to our finance team, that they certainly appreciated the work that the city had taken in reviewing their application and considering that, and recognized the efforts that were made to help them with this, and we're very grateful for that. So they have withdrawn their application, and there is no report to present. Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's great to hear. Ms. Casually, it's nice to see that they've got their funding back in line and they're back where they need to be. So any questions from Ms. Casually on that? Okay. So moving on, we'll go to our outstanding items list and back to Director Miller, please.
Thanks, Chair Platt. Just 2 items on the list. So the first one, 1129, it's the regional bus feasibility discussion. So recently, Mr. Harvard attended a meeting in Wembley with the committee that was formed, and a decision was made at the committee level to defer the matter until 2022. And so it went to Wembley Council recently, and Wembley Council agreed to defer it to 2022 with the rationale that they'll let the new council for Wembley decide if they want to bring it forward again in the future. So they are sending us a letter to that effect. We haven't received it yet. So if committee's in agreement, we could remove it and wait to see if we get invited in 2022 to participate if they want to move it forward, or to remain until we get the letter. But I'll leave it up to committee to decide, but I'd be comfortable removing it. And then the other item, 1128, is the event center presentation that Catherine just did. And I guess we could leave it there until after budget is, or the financials are presented, and then bring it back. Our intent would probably to bring the same report back with just for further discussion. So that's all, Mr. Chair. Thanks.
Thanks, Director Miller. Question, Councillor Bressie.
Yeah, just a comment on the handy bus thing. It's sorry, Mr. Miller. When did that conversation with Mr. Harvard and our regional partners happen?
I was trying to find the exact date, but I believe it was around March 15th.
Yeah, so just for committee's information, something that has changed is, I believe it was just yesterday, the federal government announced a new rural transit fund. And I don't know whether or not this would qualify for it, but I wonder if that might change the view of our regional partners now that there's some federal funding out there. So I think it's a conversation that it's worth not just assuming the conversation is done until we know our partners are aware of that new federal funding.
Director Miller.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I'll connect back with Mr. Harvard to make sure that they're aware. And then we do have the month of April to get the report to committee. So then we can talk about if we should bring a report addressing what Councillor Bressie just brought forward. Okay. Thank you.
So for now, we would leave this item on the list, I guess, for that, and just look at removing the other one.
Sure.
Okay. Can I get a motion for the outstanding items list, please? Councillor Bressie?
Yeah, happy to move that we accept it as amended.
Okay, and I'm just going to go by all in favor because we're having issues with 30 strikes, so all in favor? Councillor Blackburn? Is Councillor Blackburn, you still with us? Okay, thank you. All right, so that's unanimous. And with that, we will close off this committee meeting and I guess take a bit of a pause here.
Great. So I think it's IED next. So I've got 9:45 right now, so we'll start at 9:50.